Hugging Face is a company that provides powerful tools for natural language processing (NLP) and machine learning (ML). One of their most popular libraries is Transformers library, which allows you to use pre-trained models for various NLP tasks such as text classification, named entity recognition, question answering, and more. In this particular video, we will get you started with Hugging Face Transformers library in Python and do some really cool stuff to get you up and running with Hugging Face Transformers library very quickly. This is a website for Hugging Face if you want to learn more about it. There's also models that you can look at, search for them. There's tons of them. All of them mostly are open source or they are available for you to use. So what we're going to do is first we're going to open a terminal. I'm working on a Mac, so if you're on a Windows, I'm not sure if it will work, but it's almost similar. So what I'm going to do first is go and install TensorFlow. I need that for running most of my projects. If you're not familiar with TensorFlow, I have a separate video on TensorFlow, so you can look through that. But I'm not gonna, for this particular course, I'm not gonna go over TensorFlow. I'm gonna go ahead and install TensorFlow. It's gonna take some time. If you have not installed before, it will take some time, but let's go through this process and make sure that it's available completely. So it took a couple of minutes, but it finally installed TensorFlow. The command that I used was pip3 install TensorFlow. Now that I have TensorFlow available, next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to install Keras, which is another library. So if you want to know more about that, again, I have a video on TensorFlow which talks all about this, but I'm not going to go over it here. So now once you have TensorFlow and Keras installed, next thing is we need that transformers library from transformer library from Hugging Face. So I'm going to clear this page and go and say pip3 install transformers. This is going to take some time, as this is a new machine that I'm working on, so I've never done this on this machine, so this is the first time. So any issues, any problems, you'll probably see it along with me. So everything worked perfectly fine. That is amazing. It never happens, but I have everything installed now that I need to start up and running with Hugging Face's transformers. So now that we have transformers available, let's go through a simple example of how to use a pre-trained model to perform sentiment analysis on a piece of text. For this particular purpose, we can use the Distilbert base uncased fine-tuned SST2 English. Now that model can probably look at here. It's Distilbert base. So this, if you see, there's a bunch of them. This is the one that I'm gonna use for my sentiment analysis. So I'm going to open Sublime Text and create a new project in here, and I'll call it let's say Hugging Face.py, and inside here I'm going to write some code where I'm going to say from transformers I am going to import pipeline, which I can use to create a classifier. Now classifier is something that you can use to preload training model and tokenizer. So for that, classifier equal to use the pipeline and import sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis, to make sure that I've typed it right. Then I will use that classifier to give it some text. I love using Hugging Faces Transformers library, and then I'll print the result. So if you see, just in 4 lines of code, we have created using transformers, we have created a sentiment analysis tool. So you can give any text, you can give bunch of text. If you have emails, messages that you want to pass it to it, you can write APIs for this just by using this simple code. Let's go ahead and run this file now. I'm going to go make sure that the file is there, and I'm going to say python 3 hugging face.py. It's going to download those libraries. If it's the first time that you're downloading, it's going to take some time, and because it's, if you look at it, this the safe tensor that is downloading is 268 MB. So we'll wait for it to download. So there you go. So once it downloads the required things, it's going to go through some look at the code, run through it, and if you see at the bottom, we see label is positive, which means that the text that we have provided is positive, and it got a score of almost 99%, which is pretty good. I'm going to give you some other text. I'll say, I love my life because I have no friends. Using a little sarcasm here. Run this, and it's going to say it's positive, so I tricked it. But I can give some negative sentiments. I hate working during the day. I'll go through that, and it will say negative with a very high score of 999. So that's pretty good. So there you go. That's how our sentiment analysis. You can use sentiment analysis for any text and create an API out of this and use it. Next, we are going to look at is, let's look at text generation. So you can use models like GPT-3 or GPT-2, which are available for text generation. So what we are going to do in the same project, we are, let me just go ahead and comment this. I don't need this. And then what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to use a pipeline, which is text generation, and the model that I'm going to use is GPT-2. I'm going to specify here, this is my generator variable, and using that I'll create a result, and I'll say generator. I'm going to start with the story. Once upon a time, and I'll ask it to complete the rest of the statement. Say, and I'll the parameter that it needs is how much is the maximum length that you want. You can give whatever you want here, and number of return sequences. How many return sequences that you want? I just keep it short and just say 1. So I have that max length 50, number of returns. That looks good, and I'm going to print the result. Let's run this now. Clear it. Run this again. It's gonna probably try to download another library for this. It is 548 MB, so it's gonna take some time to download that model. So let's wait. So once it's finished downloading, if you see here, it's downloaded, and then it will start to do whatever it needs to find for finishing this. But the main thing that we are interested in is the generated text. And if you see here, once upon a time, this seemed to be a case. The only difference between the two is that they were not just, so it just created some text and blurred it out here. I'm going to run it again to see if it generates some new text. And based on the model you downloaded, of course, it will generate new text every single time. There you go. Once upon a time, the entire globe lay frozen, awake, knew what the great pumpkin seemed. Again, if I run it one more time, it will go and generate again text which is totally random here. Once upon a time, during the war, our people sought to keep. So it's pretty interesting that how it can generate text so quickly based on some of the parameters that you. And again, we've written only 4 lines of code to get this done. Next thing is name entity recognition, NER. Now, in this case, what happens is you provide some text and it will tell you if it's a person, it's a location, or anything that you provide. It will go through the text and try to figure out what you have, what have you provided to it. So for name entity recognition, we are going to use, let's call it NER. Let's say pipeline, and say that I want NER, name entity recognition, grouped entities. These are the parameters that you need. T is equal to true, and result is NER. Inside that, I'll provide some text. For example, let's say hugging Face Incorporated, which is an organization, is a company based in New York City. So this is, I've given a city here, which is a location. I can say its headquarters are in let's say some city, Lisbon, inside New York, therefore very close to the Manhattan Bridge. Full stop. And then I guess that's good enough for now, and I'm going to say print the result. So to go through this text and then try to figure out what I have, how many named entity recognition, which will recognize if there's a company, if there's a city, if there's anything else in the text that you provided. Again, very short and sweet. We'll run this. Gonna download things. So this time it's 1.33 GB, so it might take some time. So let's wait for it. So now that once it's downloaded, if you look at this here, what happened after we left it is it downloaded the library, and once that is done, just look at the last part that we have. There's a lot of warnings and process that it will talk to you about, but what we are interested in just the result, which is here where it says entity group. There's an organization. It can give you that that it's an organization based on 99% probability, and the word was Hugging Face Incorporated. Again, another one, it found a location which is New York City. It also found another location which is Lisbon. It also found another location which is Manhattan Bridge. I can also add some other text here saying that Vivian Arana lives in Atlanta and is very close to the ATL airport. I run this. This time it will be shorter because it's already downloaded everything that it needs. And there you go. It says it found a person, Vivian Arana, and it found a location, Atlanta. It also found another location, which is ATL airport. So that's how you can provide some text, and it will give you named entity recognition in that text of yours. Next thing that we'll do, very important one, which is question answering. For question answering, you can use models like BERT. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for question answering, I want to use pipeline, which is question answering. Next, I will say that the context. So what you have to give it is a knowledge base. In this case, I'm going to give it some text like Hugging Face Incorporated is a company based in New York City. Its headquarters are in Lisbon, therefore very close to Manhattan Bridge. Same text that I've used before. I'm going to use the same text as its context, and then next I'm going to ask it the question. What question do I want to ask based on this? Where is Hugging Face based? And the result will be QA, the pipeline question. So I have to pass it the question, which is question, and I have to pass it a context, which is our context, and print the result. Let's run this one. Let's clear it off. Again, 261 MB, so wait for it to download. And if you see, once it's downloaded, it will tell you that it found something. Answer is New York City with a score of this much. So that's how it can answer your questions. Now if I use another text just for fun, let's use this one. Let's not write everything manually. Go select, and I will say, where does Vivian take flights from? Just to mess around with it. Let's see if you can tell me. It says from Atlanta. It knows that I live in Atlanta, so it says it takes flight from Atlanta, even instead of Atlanta airport. So it's not perfect, but it gives you better answers based on the context you are provided. So this is how you can have your have bunch of different things that you can do, like sentiment analysis, text generation. You can do NER, name entity recognition, and you can do question answering using Hugging Face Transformers library. You can also do your fine tuning of your models, the models that you're using. If you need to fine tune a pre-trained model on your own data set, Hugging Face provides tools for this as well. This involves more advanced usage, including loading your data set, preparing it, and training the model. Now we are going to go next into much more detail in Hugging Face. There's another video that I'm creating which will talk more about complete details of Hugging Face, where we're going to go over the introduction, transformers, learn more about the fundamental concepts, and go in depth of Hugging Face. So stay tuned for that. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you.